I discovered Amaro Santoni when I met Stefano Santoni from the family itself. I'm a big fan of rhubarb aperitivo, and Santoni family has been making delicious rhubarb aperitivo for over the last 70 years. So together with Stefano Santoni, we started to think about a sort of a modern approach to what the Italian aperitivo was and have to be right now. After a few conversations and testing about what Stefano was making, we knew that something really special was just being made, the Amaro Santoni. Remember this sentence, which is very simple but very straight. Made in Italy, born in Florence. This is what it's all about. The language we speak, the Italiano, was put together in Florence, so was born in Florence. The aperitivo, think about the king of the aperitivo, one of the latest historical cocktail, the Negroni. 100 years ago, here in Florence, and other things born in Florence. And the flavors, our culture, the criteria of flavors that we use nowadays, for everydays, were somehow dictated by this very important family of Florence, the Medici, trading all the spices over the centuries here in Italy. So the aperitivo flavors, directly or not directly, was born in Florence also. I was in a plane to Florence. I got there. Before meeting Stefano, I went for a walk, for a passeggiata. And while looking at the dome of the Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, I realized that that iconic shape could be inspiring for the bottle of it. And with Stefano walking here and there, we said, look, but the concept is already here. The symbol of Florence, the giglio, the iris flower. Very important ingredient also for the cosmetic, for the perfumes, for the historical tradition of liqueurs. Another very important ingredient for the Amaro Santoni. Think about Dante Alighieri, always represented with the bay leaves around the head. Another very aromatic plant that we use for the project. Rhubarb, of course. Without rhubarb, Italian aperitivo will never exist. And rhubarb is one of the most important ingredients that Stefano's family has been crafted for 70 years. During this simple and really pleasant walk, passeggiata, I realized and I was really focused about the craft of doing things with the hand, by hand. Crossing the Ponte Vecchio, you still see these small shops of goldsmiths making jewelry by hand in front of you. Or a tiny boutique of a tailor taking measure of every guest to make a beautiful jacket. Everything still made by hand. And this for me was really important to experience it because I realized that things made by hands are connected with the heart, with the real passion. After these 2 days in Florence, walking around, we decided whatever the liquid was meant to be, had to represent this, the flavor of being Florence walking around. So, if you've never been to Florence, I truly believe that a sip of Amaro Santoni will bring you there with your imagination. And if you have been to Florence and you give a sip of Amaro Santoni, you will realize what we're talking about. In Florence, 100 years ago, the most iconic aperitivo cocktail was invented, the Negroni. 100 years later, today, by looking at the traditional combination of flavor, we thought that we could create something modern, young, friendly, not so strong, not so bitter, but very, very Italian and modern. Once again, something made in Italy and born in Florence. The conviviality factor to be on a table, having great food together, it creates a dialogue. Food creates a dialogue amongst people. No matter if you speak the same language or not, you can still kind of communicate with the person next to you when you're having a beautiful plate of handmade pasta, for example. And once again, Florence is able to connect these things, to make things happen without a language, with flavor, with food, which is somehow a type of language. Then it comes the aperitivo, another magic moment. After work, after a busy day, you still dedicate a little time for yourself, for your friends, for your loved one to go in a bar and give yourself a small aperitivo cocktail before going for dinner. A small drink, slightly bitter, not too sweet, not too strong, will stimulate your appetite. It will start a conversation with your friends, and then next door to the restaurant or at home, cooking pasta all together.